Ever wondered what's hidden in the desert? I mean, we have seen beautiful drone footage of so many places. But if one flies a drone in a desert and it records something weird, get ready to be surprised. Because today I am going to show you some of the weirdest things found in the desert. Let's get started. Number 1. Marim Man. Back in 1998, a helicopter pilot cruising over the South Australian desert spotted something unusual. A massive 5-mile-long figure of a man wielding a spear. Around the same time, anonymous faxes were sent to local businesses, tipping them off about this giant image etched into the desert, dubbed the Marim Man. After the nearby town, the figure portrays an Aboriginal hunter carrying a woomera, a traditional throwing stick used by Indigenous Australians. Despite its cultural resonance, the local Aboriginal community disavowed any involvement, viewing the geoglyph initially as a violation of their land. To this day, the creator remains a mystery, and the artwork, carved 14 inches deep into the Australian outback, stands as an enigma. Despite a $5,000 Australian reward dangling for information leading to the identity of the artist, no one has stepped forward. Regardless of how you see it, given that GPS technology was still in its early stages during its creation, the sheer accomplishment of the Marim Man is remarkable. Number 2. Whales. You would not believe what was found in the Chilean Atacama Desert. They found preserved remains of 40 whales, along with dolphins and other sea creatures, resting on what locals refer to as Whale Hill. This elevated site stands 131 feet above sea level and nearly 2 miles inland from the ocean. Finding fossils or bones of ancient marine life on land isn't entirely uncommon. However, stumbling upon such a concentration of marine creatures, all from roughly the same era and location, initially puzzled experts. These fossilized remains were found during road construction in 2010. Initially, speculation pointed towards a catastrophic tsunami as the cause, yet further examination of the sediment in the area dismissed this theory. Instead, researchers uncovered evidence suggesting a significant algal bloom. So, by comparing their findings with known causes of mass marine fatalities in modern oceans, researchers inferred that the sea creatures likely met their demise swiftly due to the toxic byproducts of a rampant algae bloom. Following their demise, the carcasses were likely transported inland through a now-vanished tidal canal and meticulously arranged in a bone heap, where they gradually succumbed to the harsh elements of the desert. Number 3. British Royal Air Force Fighter Plane. In 2012, while on an expedition in the Sahara Desert, workers from a Polish oil company came across a crazy find: a British Royal Air Force fighter plane nearly 70 years after it had crashed during World War II. The discovery itself was intriguing, but what truly captured attention was the plane's astonishing state of preservation. Identified as a Kitty Hawk P-40, equipped with 6 wing-mounted machine guns, it was designed to strike fear into Axis forces, but found itself buried beneath layers of sand instead. The absence of the pilot at the crash site is even weirder. All that remained was a parachute, seemingly repurposed into a makeshift shelter. This suggests that the pilot, Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping, managed to survive the crash. However, faced with the harsh realities of the desert, starvation, and dehydration, he ventured out into the vast expanse, disappearing without a trace. According to RAF records, Copping had gone missing while en route for repairs during his defense of Egypt against the German invasion of North Africa. Number 4. Lac de Gafsa. In the summer of 2014, Tunisian shepherds came across a surprising sight in the desert, Lac de Gafsa, a sudden lake that instantly became a magnet for tourists. What set this lake apart was its abrupt appearance, seemingly materializing overnight in a location that had long been dry desert terrain. Initially, the water shimmered with a beautiful blue hue, but before long it turned green as algae took hold, signaling stagnation and the potential for diseases like dengue and malaria to flourish. Adding to the concerns, the lake's high phosphate levels and possible contamination from nearby mines raised fears of carcinogenic and mildly radioactive properties. Despite expert warnings, locals defied the risks and flocked to the water for a refreshing desert swim, as there was no government-imposed ban on swimming. Researchers have proposed various theories to explain the phenomenon, ranging from a small earthquake or a breach in nearby mines, releasing groundwater, to the possibility of rainwater pooling in the area. We still don't know where the lake came from, which makes it even more mysterious. It's strange to see a lake suddenly appear in the desert like this. People wonder a lot about how it happened and what caused it. Number 5. Skeleton. The discovery of a skeleton in Chile's Atacama Desert sparked a big debate in 2003. Some people thought it was the remains of a human fetus, while others believed it belonged to an alien from outer space. The skeleton was tiny, only 6 inches tall, but its bones looked as if they belonged to a 6 to 8-year-old child. Its skull was elongated, and it had some unusual features, like having 10 ribs instead of the usual 12. This got UFO enthusiasts really interested, and there were lots of documentaries and investigations about it over the years. In 2018, a study led by Stanford professor Gary Nolan seemed to settle the argument. They found out that the alien was actually a female human fetus. Genetic testing showed that she had genetic markers similar to those of people from the area where she was found. She also had some health problems that affected her growth. But the skeleton also had some genetic differences that hadn't been seen before, which made some people think maybe it was still connected to aliens somehow. The mystery of the Atacama skeleton is still really interesting to a lot of people, and it keeps sparking debates and guesses about where it came from. What do you think about it? What do you think about it? Number 6. Wheellike structures scattered across the deserts of the Middle East, from Jordan to Saudi Arabia, are intriguing wheel-like structures that may rank among the oldest geoglyphs known to humanity. Tests suggest that some of these formations could date back as far as 8,500 years, placing them firmly in the realm of ancient history. While some of these structures display geometric precision and even align with the winter solstice sun, they vary greatly in appearance and arrangement. Experts speculate that these diverse occurrences likely served a range of purposes, from memorial tombs to religious sites, originating from different periods throughout Middle Eastern history. These mysterious sites are believed to be around 8,000 years old, dating back to a time when the desert areas were more habitable, with cooler weather and more rain. Even though these sites could be really important, not much research has been done on them yet. But archaeologists from all over the world are really interested in exploring these desert mysteries further. They want to find out more about them and learn about the ancient civilizations that might have lived there. Number 7. Standing stones. You might recognize the series of standing stones in the image above as a calendar circle akin to Stonehenge. However, this one, located 500 miles south of Cairo in the Nubian desert, predates the famous English landmark by potentially up to 2,000 years. Discovered in 1974, this 6,000-year-old site in the Nabta Playa Basin includes buried artifacts like pottery fragments, fire-blackened hearths, and the unique calendar circle, the only megalith of its kind known to exist within Egypt. But what drew Neolithic nomads to this remote desert location? The answer lies in the Nabta Playa Basin itself, which was once abundant with water. The stones in the circle align with the rising sun at the summer solstice, suggesting a ceremonial or ritual significance to the site. While some buried stones hint at burial practices with their hollow interiors, only cattle bones have been found thus far. Despite indications of religious significance, our understanding of this site and the people who utilized it remains fragmented, much like the remnants they left behind. Number 8. Tomb. Egyptologists are used to finding royal tombs filled with mummies, but Professor Kent Weeks stumbled upon something different in the Valley of the Kings. A huge tomb with over 100 rooms, but no mummies. When Weeks looked at the inscriptions and artifacts inside and around the tomb, he thought it should have held the children of Pharaoh Ramesses the Great. But when he explored it in 1995, the mummies were nowhere to be found. The mystery lingered for over 10 years until they discovered the truth. The The mummies weren't missing, they were actually hidden. What seemed like an empty tomb actually had a secret lower level buried under the desert sand, hidden behind a wall. Even though digging up the lower level took a long time, they eventually found several mummies of Ramesses' children inside. This discovery gave new insight into the mysterious tomb, now known as the daycare of the dead. Number 9. Kaga Oasis. In the western Egyptian desert, in a place called Kaga Oasis, there are some old carvings on a stone slab. They're about 4,000 to 6,000 years old. The carvings show spiders and other bugs. People think the carvings might be a way to show respect to the tough spiders that lived in the hot desert. They could be trying to learn from the spiders' ability to live in the extreme heat. Even though lots of ancient cultures have drawings of spiders, these ones in Kaga Oasis are special because they're in Egypt. Some experts think the carvings might not be about spiders at all. They might be some kind of old writing, but nobody knows for sure. Another idea is that they might have been a joke, like making fake spiders for fun. We don't know for sure why the carvings were made or who made them. That's why archaeologists are still trying to figure out the secrets behind these old drawings. Even though it's a mystery, people are still really interested in them. Number 10. Eye of the Sahara. In the Sahara Desert, there's a strange site called the Eye of the Sahara, also known as the Wheellike Structure. If you look at it from the ground, it just seems like more sand. But from up high, it looks like a giant eye staring out from the desert. You can mainly see it on Google Earth, or if you're an astronaut. People have argued a lot about what the Eye of the Sahara really is. At first, they thought it might be a huge crater made by an asteroid hitting the Earth, but after studying it, scientists didn't find any evidence of space stuff. A recent idea published in a science journal says it might be a really old geologic dome that got worn down over millions of years. They think that a long time ago, the ground under the Sahara was pushed up into a big circle by hot magma. This would mean the Earth had big formations like this when it was much younger. As time passed, the dome slowly broke down, leaving behind the rings we see today. Different types of rocks make up these circles, which is why they look different from each other. Not everyone agrees with this idea, but there aren't many other theories out there. Some people also have wild theories about the Eye of the Sahara being linked to the lost city of Atlantis, which was talked about by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. He described Atlantis as having circles of land and water, which some people think matches the eye, but these ideas are based more on stories and guesses than actual evidence. Number 11. GOI Desert Regions. In 2011, people using Google Earth found something strange in the Gobi Desert in China's Xinjiang and Gansu provinces. Among all the sand, they saw intricate patterns etched into the ground. These patterns were much more complex than the mysterious crop circles some people talk about. Some people even spotted big buildings nearby, but the most interesting part was the random white lines carved into the desert. What's even more surprising is that these lines were in really remote places and were not small at all. Some stretched for half a mile to over a mile long, according to the Guardian newspaper. The reason behind these strange formations turned out to be pretty smart and harmless. As it turns out, the Chinese government made them to help their spy satellites. By looking at the patterns from space, satellite operators could figure out how to position the satellites and adjust the camera lenses. This helped them make sure the measurements and pictures from the satellites were accurate. There's a similar pattern in Casa Grande, Arizona, from the 1960s, which was also used to calibrate satellites. Number 12. Four-boat. In the middle of the vast Central Asian landscape, there's a crazy thing happening. A bunch of old fishing boats sitting in the desert. These boats were once part of a lively fishing industry on the shores of the Aral Sea. But things changed when the Soviet Union decided to divert the rivers that fed the sea to grow cotton instead. As a result, the Aral Sea started to dry up in the 1960s. The water vanished, leaving behind salty, toxic land that's now called the Aralkum Desert. The fish disappeared, and so did the livelihoods of the people who depended on them. Former fishermen like Kojabai remember the good old days when Moynak, one of the towns by the sea, was thriving. But as the water retreated, so did the prosperity. People lost their jobs, and towns fell into decline. Nowadays, those old fishing boats just rusting away. The ports and factories where they used to process the catch are empty and falling apart. The environmental impact goes beyond just losing a body of water. The dust from the dried-up seabed has caused health problems for the locals. But there's a bit of hope. By letting some rivers flow back into the North Aral Sea in Kazakhstan, they've managed to bring back some fish. Maybe, with enough effort, the sea can reclaim its lost territory, and those old boats will finally disappear beneath the waves again. It's a reminder that even when things seem hopeless, there's still a chance to make things right. Number 13. Desert Breath. The art installation known as Desert Breath near El Guana, Egypt, sparked widespread intrigue and speculation when it was discovered on Google Maps in 2014. This intricate spiral pattern, spanning 1 million square feet, consisted of precisely arranged cone shapes, both mounds and sculpted pits, with a central cone measuring 100 feet in diameter. Initially puzzling, it was eventually revealed that Desert Breath was an intentional creation, completed in 1997 under the supervision of artist Danai Stratu after several years of work. The installation seemed to fade in and out of the public consciousness, with a similar rediscovery occurring in 2009. Stratu explained that the original concept involved filling the pit surrounding the central cone with water up to the rim. However, in the desert environment, it's not surprising that the water didn't linger for long. Number 14. Kangaroo skeletons. Back in 2002, something really interesting happened in Australia's Nullarbor Desert near the southern coast. While digging, scientists found a bunch of skeletons that the Australian Broadcasting Corporation called weird kangaroos. These creatures were not like the kangaroos we know because they had claws for digging, even though kangaroos don't usually dig burrows. What's even stranger is that these skeletons had bumps above their eyes. At first, people thought they were horns, but they were too small for that. Some experts think they might have been like special eye protectors. Also, these kangaroos had skulls that looked really weird, with big noses. Some folks said they looked like kangaroo clowns from outer space. Even though they might seem a bit crazy, these animals were harmless. They only ate plants. But their strange features give us cool hints about the different kinds of animals that lived in Australia a long time ago. Number 15. Fairy circles. For years, scientists have been puzzled by a strange phenomenon known as fairy circles, found in the Namib Desert in Africa and parts of Australia. These circles are barren patches of land surrounded by vegetation where no grass grows. They're evenly spaced and look like concentric rings, which has led some people to compare them to places where UFOs might land, sparking all kinds of theories about where they come from. At first, scientists thought maybe fires or wind patterns caused the circles, but they realized that couldn't be true because some of these patches have been bare for up to 75 years. It wasn't until 2017 that they started to come up with better explanations. One idea is that the fairy circles used to be homes for termite colonies. The spacing of the circles matches up with how termite colonies are spread out in other places. Another theory says that the circles are created by plants spreading out their roots to get water when there isn't much around. Even though these explanations help, they still don't completely solve the mystery of why the circles stay bare for so long without any signs of termite homes. But they're more believable than saying actual fairies are behind it all. Scientists are still trying to figure out the fairy circles, and it's a topic of ongoing research and discovery. Number 16. The Bolivia Train Cemetery. The Bolivia Train Cemetery, located in Uyuni, Bolivia, is a poignant reminder of the town's once vibrant history as a key transportation hub, particularly serving the mining industry. Over time, as the mining industry waned, the trains that once traversed the rugged terrain were gradually decommissioned and left to weather away in the desert. Today, the train cemetery has transformed into a fascinating yet somewhat eerie attraction for tourists, offering a unique window into Bolivia's industrial heritage. Rows upon rows of derelict locomotives and rail cars sprawl across the desert landscape, creating a surreal scene that captivates visitors. Number 17. Ryan Singleton. The nation was shocked by the tragic case of Ryan Singleton, a 24-year-old openly gay male model from Georgia in 2013. After he went missing, his remains were discovered by hikers in California's Mojave Desert 2.5 months later. What they found was horrifying. Singleton's eyes, lungs, liver, kidneys, and heart had been removed, leaving a disturbing scene. Despite a thorough investigation, no evidence of who did this or any leads were found by 2016. At first, authorities thought animals might have taken Singleton's organs, but his body was mostly intact except for the missing organs. This raised doubts about that explanation. His family wondered if someone in the entertainment industry might have wanted to harm him or if his sexual orientation made him a target for a hate crime. If he died of natural causes, it still didn't explain why he ended up in such a remote place. Number 18. Libyan desert glass. In the Great Sand Sea Desert, there are pieces of yellow glass known as Libyan desert glass. This peculiar substance has fascinated scientists since its discovery in 1933. Unlike other types of natural glass, Libyan desert glass is prized for its beauty and rarity. For years, experts debated where this glass came from. Some thought it might be from volcanic activity on the moon, while others suggested it formed from lightning strikes or other natural processes. Recently, advanced microscopy techniques have provided new clues. Researchers used high-powered microscopes to examine the glass closely. They found minerals inside it that can only form under extreme conditions, like those produced by a meteorite impact. This discovery suggests that Libyan desert glass might be the remnants of a long-lost meteorite collision with Earth. However, one big question remains: where is the impact crater? Finding it could unlock even more secrets about this fascinating glass and the events that shaped our planet. So the search continues, adding another chapter to the story of Libyan desert glass. And that wraps it up, guys. The desert sure knows how to keep us on our toes, doesn't it? If you were as blown away by this discovery as we were, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends so they can join in on the excitement too. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more amazing finds. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and remember, keep exploring.